Welcome to the Haute Sugar Collective podcast, where the sugar is hot and reality bites. I'm your host, Emerlie Miller, and today we're going to be talking about the craziest thing I have ever done, which was run away to a cake design school in Canada after I lost my job, and honestly, it changed the entire trajectory of my life. Before we get started, be sure to follow on all of our platforms, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Let's get into it. First, we have to take this back to my first bakery job, which was when I worked at a local grocery store called Harmon's. I barely knew decorating cakes. I barely could decorate a cake. I'm so grateful that they even hired me. I actually had to stack a cake in my interview to prove to them that I could decorate. And I barely scraped by. They had to talk me through it. I really just did cakes and cupcakes and little treats as a hobby. I wanted to be there so bad. But I did this job for, I believe it was almost a year, but I was having such a hard time working at this bakery because I was working at a bakery with other older women. And unfortunately, when you work with older women, when you work in a bakery setting, a lot of times that becomes like their whole life, their whole personality. And they gossip worse than high schoolers. Like, it's terrible. If you know, you know, it can get bad. And I wasn't very good at decorating cakes, and I was constantly treated like I didn't know what I was doing. I was not fast enough. I was not good enough to decorate these cakes, and I struggled so much in this bakery setting. But, I really worked through it. I was not well liked by the lead cake decorator for sure. She was kind of rude to me. But the manager believed in me a little bit, and she, was like, it's okay, encouraging me. We had some mishaps. Like, there's some crazy stories I could tell about that bakery. But that's not the story today. So moving on from that, I was so miserable at this job because of how miserable everyone else was around me. And I was like, I just want to decorate cakes. Like, I don't even know what else to do right now. And I was really starting to enjoy it. But again, I really wasn't that good. They can be mean, I guess, but I was trying at least. So after working at this bakery for a while, I started looking for a job elsewhere. I actually almost got a job at a Sweet Nothings. No, not Sweet Nothings. Sorry. That was a bakery I temporarily helped at, but I almost got a job at Nothing Bundt Cakes, but I was like, this doesn't feel right. Like, they offered the job to me and I was like, this doesn't feel right. I don't think I should get this job here. So I turned down that job opportunity, and there was a local cupcake shop that I really wanted to work at. There was something about that shop that just attracted me. And so I kept applying at this cupcake shop. It took me 3 applications over several months for them to finally call me back, interview me, and hire me. And I got a job at this cupcake shop. They had won Cupcake Wars. They actually had 2 locations. I was at their second location. And man, the things I could tell you about what happened at that location. Again, like, I met some of the greatest people in my life at that bakery, and I met some of the worst people in my life at that bakery. And unfortunately, like, the manager and assistant manager at that second location didn't trust me to decorate cakes. I was a night person. I was the one running the till. I was, depositing the cash at the end of the night, and I was mixing batter, and I was mixing buttercream and doing dishes. And I kept wanting to decorate cakes. I kept trying to prove myself to them, and they did not like me because I was not fast enough. I wasn't good enough by their standards. And so I was trying to do cakes on the side. I was trying to build up my portfolio and trying to prove to them. I was trying to help them while I was in the shop, and they constantly did not like that. And so it just came down to this manager and assistant manager who were working at this cupcake shop to do all of the cakes, plus all the administrative things. And they were just 2 peas in a pod. They were very interesting people. I realized later I like them as an individual, but not as managers. They were not the best to work with, unfortunately. And a lot of stuff happened. I don't want to get fully into all of that because there's so much more that happens from here. But basically, I worked at this shop where everything that could go wrong was going wrong because this assistant manager and this manager could not keep on top of the cake orders, and they were trying to do everything themselves, and they were micromanaging like crazy. And a lot of things slipped through the cracks. We were hemorrhaging money at this location. And I found out later that I was getting the blame for some of these issues that were happening at this bakery. So I was working at this bakery, like just, giving you a few little stories. For example, I was over at another job and they called me in. I think it was like a Wednesday when I had a night shift already. And they're like, hey, we need you to come over right now. So I had to leave my other job early. I had to come over, and they didn't have anyone to deliver a wedding cake that night. They hadn't planned accordingly for that. And so I had to just drop everything, run over to the store, and I had to put a cake in the back of my car. Now I I drove a little Chevy Cavalier. Like, that's not a car you want to deliver a wedding cake in. We figured out how to do it. We put a board in the back. I don't know. We put some non-slip things down. Somehow got this 3-tiered wedding cake into the back of my car, and I went and delivered it. It was already late at this point. As soon as I delivered it, I set it down. Everybody at the wedding just swarmed this cake. I think they started putting flowers on it, and I just stepped away, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll be leaving. And we found out later I found out later that they called the owner and said that there was a handprint on their buttercream cake, and I got the blame for that. I definitely did not touch that buttercream. Another thing that happened that weekend, so much chaos that happened that weekend, but there was another wedding cake that they hadn't planned accordingly for. So I show up to work that weekend. I think it was the birthday anniversary of the bakery, so we were just swarmed with customers that weekend, or the day before, I think on Friday. And when it came to Saturday, this assistant manager waited till the last minute to stack another 3-tiered buttercream wedding cake, this beautiful white cake. And she went to go stack it at the very last minute and then realized that the bottom tier of the cake was missing. And we never quite figured out what happened to that bottom tier. But basically, she couldn't find it in the freezer, and we're like, did it get used up for the birthday part or the birthday celebration yesterday? But it was too big to have accidentally been stacked and sold as just like a little cake. And it just was missing. And so I walked in, and she was trying to stack this cake. Okay, she was trying to stack the top 2 tiers. She was still baking the bottom tier of the cake. And I think at this point it was already late. Like, she should have already been leaving already. And so I remember, like, the cake was still in the oven. She was frantic about all of this. And I remember her putting it in the freezer and trying to cool it down as rapidly as possible. She was like on the verge of a panic attack. Like, all this crazy stuff was happening. And I remember she tried to stack the cake while it was still warm. And you could literally see the cake, the bottom tier of this cake, jiggling, and her just freaking out. And it wasn't until this cake was almost fully stacked that the assistant manager realized she didn't bring her car that day, and she was supposed to deliver this wedding cake. In fact, she was supposed to deliver that wedding cake, go to the main location, pick up another wedding cake after that one, and deliver that one as well. So she was supposed to be delivering multiple cakes that day, and it didn't occur to her that she did not drive her car into work that day, and that she left it at home with her boyfriend, who was on drugs. I think he was on some major painkillers and should not have been upright. And she was freaking out. And yeah, long story short, the cake ended up in my car. I had to deliver it last minute. As soon as I pulled out of the parking stall, not even the lot, as soon as I pulled out of that parking stall, the entire cake fell apart. And there's so much chaos that day. But this just kind of prefaces really what led to a lot of decisions. There was a lot of crazy stuff like this happening. And what happened was I found out because I also was getting into trouble for this cake that fell apart, even though I had no hand in it. Like, I literally was thrown into delivering a cake and it wasn't stable enough for me to deliver. And these two incidences happened in the same week. And the manager, assistant manager, like we had to have a meeting with the owner, and she was like, what happened? Like, where did the bottom tier go? Like, why did it go missing? And they accused me of stealing it. And I'm like, why would I steal this cake? And I think it was partially because I was trying to build a portfolio. I was trying to prove myself. And I was like posting cakes all the time at home, or, like online on Instagram. And they thought that I had stolen a cake so that I could decorate it at home. And I always baked all of my stuff at home. That I never stole that cake. We still don't know what happened to it. It just went missing. But yeah, I got accused of stealing this cake. I got accused of putting a handprint on the cake. And even though I denied it, like, I still was getting the blame for it. And even though I really had no part in all of these awful things happening, the business hemorrhaging money, they still allowed me to accept the blame. They never defended me. They never said, oh no, actually she's not a part of this. Like, she's just kind of a bystander to this. So unfortunately, I was getting into trouble for this. Well, through a series of other events, the owner found out that I was not in fact a cake decorator. So we had some other issues that happened, and she's like, what is happening? Why can't Emerlie fix this? Why can't she fix that? Isn't she also a cake decorator at this shop? And someone else had to tell her, no, actually, the manager and assistant manager don't allow her to decorate cakes. They don't let her touch them. And because of this, the owner of this bakery, of the two locations, decided to send me to her main location and get me trained as a cake decorator, like properly trained. And that was just such a great time for me. It was the summer of 2014. I was probably 21, 22 years old. And I was able to go to the main location, it was like a bigger store. It had these amazing cake decorators, so talented. The owner was right there decorating a lot of the cakes. She was this well-known artist in the industry, especially locally. She had won Cupcake Wars, the Star Wars episode, and they all trained me. Like, she took the time to train me, her employees trained me, and I got proper training as a cake decorator for 2 weeks. I went in, I learned fondant work, I learned all these other things. I knew how to stack cakes. I actually became like the go-to buttercream person because I had worked in a grocery store bakery. So I already knew buttercream really well. And that became my specialty, was like using the buttercream, especially stacking sheet cakes. But they taught me how to do fondant work. So with all of that being said, like, I did the training, went back to the other location, and still was not allowed to decorate cakes. And we were still hemorrhaging money. All this crazy stuff was happening. Well, I was getting really frustrated because I had done the training. I had done everything I needed to. I was trying to prove myself. And I kind of got to this breaking point of, I don't want to be here anymore. My friends that I actually enjoyed working with had quit. And I was still being forced to do nighttime duties. I really wanted to decorate cakes. Like, this just kind of became like my new passion. And I knew I could be better at it. I knew I wanted to do better. And despite being good enough for the owner and she being so encouraging and amazing, when I was back at the other shop, the manager, assistant manager, like, they would not let me decorate cakes. They would not let me prove myself. They still had to micromanage everything, and they were terrible at it. They could not stay on top of it. Their own personal lives were a hot mess, like all this crazy stuff. So I kind of got to this breaking point where I just didn't want to do that anymore. And I remember that there was one particular weekend where I was just so done with what happened, with all the stuff that was happening. And I really thought to myself, I spent a whole weekend and I'm like, I really want to work for this shop, but I can't work for these people. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. And so I decided that weekend, no, I am for sure quitting this job. And I started looking for other jobs. I was done. I was absolutely done. And I wasn't even looking for another cake decorating job. I was just looking for another job. Like, I just wanted to get out of there. And so I started looking for other jobs, and I was like, nope, I'm done. And after that weekend, as I'm already looking for another job, and didn't tell anyone I was quitting, but that Tuesday, the owner came into the shop. She never came into her second location. I rarely ever got to see her. She came into the shop, and she was decorating for, I believe, Halloween. It was like Halloween or Thanksgiving or something. But she came in to redecorate the shop, and it was just the two of us that night. And I was doing my nightly duties, and she was decorating, and we were just chatting, just getting to know each other a little bit more. And, she's asking me how everything's going, and I'm lying like, oh, it's good, I guess. Whatever. I think she could tell. I wasn't decorating cakes. I was doing nightly duties. And it was just so crazy because she, that night, offered me to transfer to her main location. And this is where things get a little bit crazy. Like the series of events that led to me going to school not that much longer after this happened. But yeah, she had a cake decorator quit on her, and she could tell that I was still not being given the opportunities to decorate cakes at this shop, and that I was not being properly utilized, and the shop was hemorrhaging money anyways. And she was just like, let's just transfer you. She's like, I just lost a cake decorator at my main location. Would you like to transfer and become a cake decorator over there? And that right there changed my life. The fact that I almost quit that job and probably would have walked away from decorating cakes entirely. Maybe I would have just gotten a job at another grocery store. I don't know. But I said yes. And I transferred over to this other main location, and I got to decorate cakes. Like they loved me. It was just such a stark difference because I felt like I really wasn't good enough. I wasn't fast enough. Like I wasn't, like maybe I wasn't cut out for this, and that I'm the problem. But instead what happened was I transferred over to their main store, and I started decorating cakes over there. And I was still kind of doing some nightly jobs. Like I wasn't a full-time cake decorator yet. After just a couple weeks, the owner sat me down, and she was like, you are doing such a fantastic job. Like you're a self-starter. Like you know how to anticipate things. Like you're good at your job. And she offered me to go full-time and to be a full-time cake decorator, not even have to do the nightly shifts anymore. And I was so ecstatic. I couldn't even tell you. Like, I was so happy. She realized I had never gotten a pay raise either. She gave me a $2 pay raise, and she's like, you're great. We want to keep you. Like, yes, like, let's get you up and going even more. And yes, this all kind of falls apart very quickly. So I only worked at this main location for about 2 months, actually. I think it was October to the very beginning of January. So this was October 2014 to January 2015. And during that time, I was thriving. I was having so much fun. I was learning like crazy. I love learning. I love being a student. And to be able to be in this like awesome environment with all of these amazing, talented people, and everyone got along at that shop. That's a very important to this. And so I was working at the shop, and there was one particular day when I was working at the shop where I was talking to the owner. Just, she was always giving me great business advice, and, just like so nurturing and like such a mentor, And I'm a curious person. I ask a lot of questions. But we were talking one day, and she just randomly told me, oh yeah, there's a cake school in Canada. And I'm like, really? And so she told me a little bit about it. She didn't know that much, but it was something that she wished that she could go do. And she was like, yeah, it's in Toronto. Mind you, I live in Utah in the USA. So this was like another country on the other side of the continent. But yeah, so she told me like there is this cake school. It's not that long of a program. It's only 4 months, like, and then you learn how to decorate cakes. And like, it's just something I wish I could go do. She was already amazing and talented, but it was something that she had looked into. but she just didn't feel like she could. She was older. She had, I think, 3, 4 kids, running 2 shops. It's not something that she could run off to go do. And she just randomly tells me about this. I'm like, oh man, that's the dream. Like, I've looked at pastry schools, but no one teaches cakes. And I was like, that sounds really cool. And just for some context here, I did wait for my husband on a mission. I grew up LDS. I waited for, or I'm my husband is my high school sweetheart. So I've been with my husband since high school. But after high school, he went on a 2-year mission to Brazil, a religious mission. And we had barely any contact during that time. And I did date a little bit while he was gone. And then he came back and we immediately got married. So just to preface that of how I responded to that, I just off the cuff was like, I waited for my husband for 2 years. He can wait for me for 4 months. And I just kind of laughed it off and like, oh, that'd be cool. And I didn't think anything else of it. Like, it slipped my mind and it was not something I looked into. Well, I think that was in December. The very beginning of January, she shut down her shops. So a lot led to this decision. She lost her lead cake decorators. She lost several of them back to back. They all had their own personal reasons, like they needed better insurance and other things. And she also lost her manager at her main location. And all of these crazy things were happening. The manager at the second location, her son, half of his face went paralyzed, a very young child. And so she had to be, I think, in the NICU or something with her kid. And so the owner was stretched so thin trying to keep these 2 shops going. And she was having to drive clear out to her second location and fulfill all these Christmas gift basket orders. And she was sleeping at these shops, and she was just failing everywhere, struggling so much and not getting any sleep. And then she got into a car accident around Christmas time, and she just decided, I can't do this anymore. And she was already burnt out. She already had been trying to sell the business, actually for several years, I believe. And she just decided, I can't do this anymore. And she decided to close down her businesses because she realized going into January, that's when, you start getting wedding cake orders for the whole summer. And so going into January, she just really thought long and hard about it. She prayed about it and was like, I can't do this anymore. I have to let go of these businesses. My family is suffering. I am suffering. And she realized that if she didn't make that decision right then and there, that she was committing to another summer. Once you start taking those brides and other orders in January, when they start trickling in, you're committing to a whole nother year. And having to train a new manager, having to train new lead cake decorators. And I'm a baby, there's only so much I could do. I wasn't the only decorator, but, she couldn't do it. And so unfortunately, she sent an email out to everybody beginning of January 2015. And she said, I'm so sorry, but we will be closing down both of the shops. Everyone will be losing their jobs. We are so, so sorry. And I got this email on a Sunday when the shop was closed. And I remember where I was at. I remember what I was doing. And I had a hysterical meltdown because right before this happened, I thought I got everything I wanted. I remember thinking, I am happy, I am satisfied in life, and I have everything I want in life. And that's when God gets you. He's like, well, actually, it could be better. And so I took it very hard. We only had a 2-week notice, and she closed down the shops. And I just had this full-blown meltdown. And I went into this shop the next day, and I was so upset. And I was working in the morning in silence. I was with a brand new employee who I'm not even sure if she got the email. I barely knew her, barely talked to her. I was too upset that morning to have a conversation with her, but I still don't know if she got the email because she was so new. She was just doing her job and I was doing mine. And I just remember just being so upset, just, grieving this job and this opportunity that I worked so hard to get to. And it was finally a workplace environment that wasn't toxic. And the owner came in and she just immediately, she was like the third person there that day. She immediately broke down and she was like, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like I'm the first person that she has to interact with after this announcement. And she was like, I just decided I couldn't do this anymore. Like, I hope you understand. And that she told me how she prayed about it and how she promised to like spend more time with her family if she decides to let go of the business. And I was like, oh, I forgive you. Like, it just instantly, I was no longer upset. And I was like, you know what? I get it. That sucks. Sucks for everybody. But honestly, like, I get it. And, don't worry about it. Like, it's okay. And, I got home from my shift that day and I was like, now what? What do I do? Like, I thought I had the perfect job. There was not a lot of bakeries to choose from. A lot of people work out of their homes and, like there wasn't a lot of options for me for like a bakery to go work at that actually would be at the same level as this bakery. And not only that, reason why I tell you a lot of my history is because I was so tired of working in toxic bakeries and not being allowed to decorate cakes because I was not fast enough. I wasn't good enough. Like just all these toxic people who think they're better than you and who claim to be perfectionists, but they're not perfectionists. They're actually sloppy and they can't stay on top of things. And it was hard, dealing with that for it was only like a 2-year span of these, the grocery store, bakery, and then the cupcake shops. All of that happened in only a 2-year span. But I realized I don't want to start at the bottom of another totem pole. And I think about that phrase all the time because that's what got me on my current path. And I realized I don't want to start at the bottom of another totem pole. Like, I don't want to be in another toxic bakery. I don't want to prove myself again. I don't want to work my way up. I can't do this. And so I went home that night and I started brainstorming, what's next? What do I do? And I started writing down, okay, I could go get a job here. I could go get a job there. Like, what skills do I have? What can I do? Do I go to school? Like, I was working on my associate's degree at the time. And, what do I major in? I originally wanted to do web design and graphic design. Like, I went to a tech school for that stuff, actually. And, but I already felt like I couldn't do those jobs. That's a whole nother story. But I was like, what do I do? And that day, the day after I found out I was losing my job, that thought came back of, there's a cake school in Canada. I should look into that. And so I did. I looked it up. I Googled Cake School Canada, and I found Bonnie Gordon College of Confectionery Arts. And I looked into it, and I'm like, this is amazing. But I'm never going to do that. Like, I think a lot of people like see my personality now, and they're like, oh yeah, that is something you would do. Back then, no. Like, I was shy. I mumbled all the time. Like, I am extremely introverted. The extroverted version of me is actually the curated version of me that I've forced myself to be. I'm very introverted, very shy, and I have never been an adventurous person like this. I just immediately was like, you're not going to do that. Like, it's cool, but you're not going to do that. Well, obviously I did. So basically I decided I'm going to do this. And I think it took a couple days for me to even mention it. I was too embarrassed to tell anyone else, but I was just like, I think that's what I need to do. I need to go to this school in Canada. I'm going to cry because it's just this whole experience, honestly, like anytime I reflect back on it is like truly incredible how everything happened and how everything fell into place, especially from here on out. So basically I went to this, or I waited a couple days to tell anybody. I'm like, okay, no one's gonna let this happen. I don't have money. Like, I really, like, honestly can't even afford this. Yeah, I am crying. So anyways, I was like, there's gotta be a way to do this. I gotta do this. So a couple days later, I'm working in the shop again. I'm talking to the owner again. And, we're just going about doing our job. And she I brought up the cake school and I'm like, hey, remember how you told me there's a cake school in Canada? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, I want to go. I think I'm going to go. I don't know how, but I think I'm going to go. It would be so cool. And she was like, right then, she was like, oh, you should talk to Becca. Like, Becca, like maybe you and Becca should go together. This is my coworker who worked at this shop. Right then, Becca walks into the back of the shop and she heard it and she was like, what do you need to tell Becca? She's so cute. And she's like, what do you need to tell me? She walks in and I'm like, oh my gosh, Becca, there's this cake school in Canada that I heard about through Janelle. And like, I looked into it and it would be so cool. Like, I think I want to go. And she's like, oh, because apparently she had been looking into pastry schools, but she didn't know about this school. And she wanted to do cakes too, like more so. And, so she's like, oh, okay, I'm going to look into this. And so she came back the next day to work and was like, I'm going. What I didn't know at the time is that she could afford to go. Actually, her parents looked at the school with her that night and they immediately decided, yeah, this is everything you want in a school. And they had the means to send her. And so she came back the next day. She's like, yeah, I talked to my parents. I'm going to go. And I'm like, oh, shoot, like, okay, but now I need to figure out how I'm going to go. So, I was, oh my gosh, the next couple months were absolute chaos trying to figure out how to make this happen. They actually, her mom actually offered to potentially like lend me the money. And I was like, I'm not even going to go there. And I ended up like, I went to a bank. I tried to pull out a loan. I'm like 23 at this point, I think. I'm 23 years old at this point. I have no credit history. I have just been going to a local community college. Like I had no means to get a loan. And so my husband and I, like we tried to go get a loan taken out. I had to get a personal loan because I couldn't qualify for student loans or anything like that. And I got denied. And like I remember calling up my dad and I'm like, yeah, like there's this cake school in Canada. I really want to go. And I didn't even ask him for money. I hadn't even thought about asking him for money. And he was like, I can't help you. And I'm like, okay. He's like, no, I just can't. I can't. Not that he wouldn't. It's just like, he was like, I can't like help you co-sign on a loan or anything. He's like, you're on your own, figure it out. And no one really believed me when I was talking about this anyways. Oh, actually, we have to go back just a little bit more. When I told my husband. So, yeah, it took me probably a week or so to mention it to my husband. He had come home from work and I was like, hey, like, I'm trying to figure out what to do next. There's this cake school though. It'd be amazing. And I told him all of the positive things. I told him, oh, like it's there, it's a cake school. It's specialized. Like, it's not just a normal pastry school. It's only a 4-month program. It's only $15,000, which I thought was cheap. And I'm like, this is why that would be so great. And then I can like do my own business and I don't have to work at these bakeries. Cause he knew all the chaos that I had been dealing with. And I was like telling him all these wonderful things. He's like, that sounds great. Yeah. Like we should look into that. And I was like, okay, but there's a catch. And he's like, okay. And I was like, it's in Canada. Sorry, babe, it's in Canada, in Toronto. And he was like, okay. And I was like, but this and this and this, like, this is all the reasons why it'd be a good thing if I go. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, but this and this and this, like, I was like, I had a full argument, like locked and loaded on why I should go to this school in Canada. And after arguing with him a little bit, he was like, I've already said, okay, like, why are you arguing with me? And I'm like, oh, you did say, okay. Like I said, I waited for him for 2 years. He just immediately was like, if that's what you want to do, figure it out. So anyways, going back to trying to get a loan, we got denied, like all this crazy stuff. And, my mother-in-law, actually, she offered to co-sign on a loan. And she was like, if this is what you want to do, like, I can co-sign. I trust you kids, but, if try to figure it out on your own, but I could step in if you want. and we got denied. And so I went to her and I'm like, okay, you said yes, so let's go. I dragged her to the bank with my husband. We sat down, we got a loan, and we did get approved for that loan. And I was able to pull out the money. And I was still trying to, like, my friend Becca and I were still trying to, like, meet up together, and we were trying to, like, send in our application for school. Mind you, we lost our job in January. We were trying to go for that summer. So we had to be in Toronto by May, the very beginning of May. So we had only a couple months to pull this off, to figure out how we were going to do it, where we were going to live, how we were going to get there, and to even get accepted. Like, I had to go pull my high school transcripts. I had to, like, I think I had to send in recommendations letters. Like, I think I had to have a resume. Like, I had to go crazy with all of this. So I'm, like, frantically trying to do all this. I had to pick up a temporary job. I was a drug runner for that couple months, actually. I was a courier for a private pharmacy, but I like to tell people I'm a drug runner. But anyways, yeah, like, I was doing all of this stuff. It was a very chaotic couple of months. I didn't have any time to even save money. And I'm just trying to figure this out. And the day we got accepted to this school, which was, I think, like, exactly 1 month before we were supposed to start at the school, and we're still looking for a place to live and still trying to pull all the strings together. And the day we got accepted, I got my acceptance letter, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I got accepted. I texted Becca and I'm like, I got accepted. What about you? And she, I think, later texted me and she was like, yeah, I got accepted too. Yay. Like, we're both just so ecstatic, so happy. And then later that night, I texted her again. I'm like, we really need to figure out where we're going to live. Like, now it's game time. Like, we've got only a month to figure this out now that it's official. And she's not texting me back. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, I was kind of like, okay, why aren't you more excited about this? Like, we gotta plan. And she texted me late that night and she said, my house is on fire. And I was like, what? That's all she said. What? What do you mean your house is on fire? So that night, out of nowhere, I don't think they ever figured out why, her house caught on fire in her bedroom, of all places. I think it was bad wiring, older house, I don't know. But yeah, her house caught on fire, and it was a very traumatic event for her. And all of the stuff that we bought, like, we actually, we inherited a lot of stuff from the cupcake shop when it closed down. And we actually split up a bunch of stuff too. Like, oh, we'll just borrow this from each other when we need to. She had just moved all that stuff up to her bedroom, and everything burned down and melted. And I think her family had to move out of that house for like a full year and completely renovate it and get like a separate house to live at. Like, it was bad. And she lost basically everything that she owned. Because, again, specifically in her bedroom, everything she owned, gone. And luckily, that didn't get in the way of us going to school. If, in a way, it was like almost like a blessing for us, because her dad stepped in and was like, oh no, like, I need you guys to be in a safe space. Like, he was worried about his daughter. He was worried about me. And he's like, I need you girls to be safe if you're going to Canada. And so he stepped in, and after that incident, because we were struggling to find a place where we could both live that was within, like, within commuting distance of this cake school, and was not crazy expensive because it was right by downtown Toronto. And he was like, I need to take care of you girls. Like, I need to make sure that you guys are safe. And so he stepped in, he found us an apartment. And it was a really nice apartment. We both had our own bedroom. We actually had a really big living room. It was really nice. And I think it was like $1,600, but I think it was $1,600 US dollars. I think 2,000 a month for Canadian dollars. And he stepped in. He paid for half of our apartment up front. So I paid him basically a quarter of that, $400 for the first 3 of the 4 months. So I paid him $1,200 up front with the loan that I had already pulled out. I probably should have pulled out a little bit more, but I handed them over to him right away. And, my friend, I think she paid a quarter of that as well. And he paid for half of each month for all up front, got us a really nice apartment under his name that we probably would never have been able to get on our own. And he set us up. Like it was so amazing. And everything fell into place. And so from there, we took off. So my friend Becca, she was still finishing up a semester at school, and she had to fly out at the very last minute with her mom. And I was like, I'll drive there. I want my car. Like I need my car, to be able to commute every single day for 4 months. I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to get around without a car. And it's going to be cheaper to drive anyways. And I was on a shoestring budget. Okay. I had not very much, I had no money saved up, nothing. And we only had the loan that was barely going to cover the cost of this school. And, so I was like, okay, I'm going to get there. I'm going to figure this out. And what I ended up doing was driving there. And I didn't have anyone to drive with me. I was just like, I'll figure it out. I'll get hotels or something along the way. Like, I am on such a small budget, and I'm going to drive my car out there. And I was telling my sister this. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to drive there. It's no big deal. And she's like, you're not driving across the country by yourself for several days. It's over a 30-hour drive with no stops. I think it was 33 hours with no stops. And she's like, you're not doing that. Don't be stupid. I'm coming with you. And so she lived 4 hours away from me at that time. She drove to me, and we took off from my home, and I went to cake school. And I think I'm going to do a whole nother episode specifically on my experiences at school. Hopefully I can get Becca on the podcast as well, and we can talk about it as well, because that deserves its own episode or multiple episodes of this crazy experience of going to this school, because it completely changed my life. And I think about it often. Like, this is such a big point of my life, everything that took to get there, and the fact that everyone kind of just like helped me get there. My sister dropped everything. She helped me drive across the country, and I would love to tell that story. I'd love to tell how I got back from Canada, because that was a whole story in and of itself of how I got back. And it was just such a great experience. I went to this world-renowned school. I got to learn everything about cakes from start to finish. I learned how to bake from scratch, even with over 60 food allergies, because of this school. I met some amazing people there. And with all this being said, when I decided that I was going to go to this school, I remember, I actually have it written somewhere right around me. I actually have it written in a notebook of all the reasons why God wants you to go to school, go to Bonnie Gordon College. And I wrote down all these reasons, and I need to pull it back up and remind myself of what I wrote down, because all the reasons I told myself why I'm going to go is nothing compared to where I've gotten, how much I have achieved, which I hope to talk more about on the podcast as well. Like, all of the amazing things I've been able to achieve, and all the things that I hope to continue to achieve in this industry for myself, and to keep growing beyond where I'm currently at, because the sky's the limit. Like, I have big dreams for where I want to take things, and I've already taken it so much further than I ever expected. But I made myself a promise that I would take it seriously, because of just everything that had to fall into place, everything that was put right, in the right places. The things that I thought were such terrible things that happened to me actually ended up being some of the best things that happened to me. Losing my job changed my life. Going to the school changed my life. Other people stepping in and giving me opportunities, or even just my husband allowing me to run away to school for 4 months by myself. Well, with my roommate, with my friend, that I didn't know that much I didn't know Becca that much yet because she was a newer coworker for me since I was newer to that location. But yeah, I made myself a promise that I would never take that experience for granted and that I would do more with my life. And, I see so many people who have wasted potential who could do so much more with their life and they don't. And they get these experiences, they get these opportunities and they don't do anything with it. Or they put in a little bit of effort and then things get hard and they're like, this is too much. Like, I'm just going to take the easy way out. And for someone like me who should not have been able to pull this off, but I was able to pull this off, like that, I had to fight tooth and nail. I had to scrape by in order to get to where I'm at, in order to, go to this school. I had to fight for these jobs. I had to fight for a lot of opportunities. I don't take that for granted. And I think fighting for it is in some ways the better way to go, because I'm not just going to take these skills that I've built over the many, many years and walk away from it. There's been so many times, even recently, I'm like, I am so done with being a cake decorator, being a sugar artist. Like, I am constantly burning myself out, and I am constantly like, maybe I just need to switch careers to something that is easier. And then I keep thinking back to, but what was all of that for? All of the sacrifices I've made. How many people would leave their spouse behind? And how many people would have a spouse who would let them leave them behind and go to a school like this, leave for a whole summer? A lot of people would never want to do that, think to do that, allow themselves to do that. And a lot of people would not allow their spouse to do that. But I'm very lucky to have a husband who very much supports all of my crazy adventures. And he's so chill about it too. He's like, if that's what you want, cool. Let me know how it goes. Because he's got his own projects, his own things that he's working on. And I love that. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. I hope to continue this story. I hope this inspired you to not take things for granted in your life, to remember that you're so talented and amazing. And, I hope that this can also inspire people who maybe are burnt out in this industry. That's a huge part of this podcast. Is I see so many people who are getting burnt out in this industry, and you have to make a decision. Do you completely start fresh in something completely new, or do you reimagine what your skills can do? And for me, instead of doing cake orders anymore, I did wedding cakes for so many years. So many years I burnt myself out so bad. I was working like 80+ hour work weeks every single week by myself. I was pulling all-nighters. I was burning myself out like crazy. And there's been so many times where I'm like, I physically, mentally, emotionally cannot do this anymore. Maybe I should just go do something else. Maybe I just go get a job. Like just a basic job. Like, let me go be a server or something. And in some ways, that's appealing. I'm not dogging on it. That is appealing. There's so many times where I'm like, I just want to clock in for a job, not turn my brain on, come home and just relax and just work on my hobbies and just have fun. But no, instead you take those skills that you have and you find a way to repurpose it. And for me, that is doing a YouTube channel, that is launching my website, that is launching, I have an online academy that I just launched, Neo Sugar Academy. I have, I can talk about my stories. I can talk about my experiences. I can interview other people in the industry going through the same thing on this podcast. And, I want to be a content creator so bad. That's been my dream since I was a child, literally since homestarrunner.com. I remember just admiring that website and going, I don't know how they're making money, probably merch, but I was like, I want that. I want to make money online. That is my dream. I love that. Neopets, MySpace, like Homestar Runner, Red versus Blue, all those things inspired me from such a young age to make money online. And so that's my pivot, is take the skills I already have, make money online. And still working on it, but hopefully soon I can start doing some fun content again. If you follow along, I do edible photo shoots and I have other series ideas that I am so excited to get started as soon as possible because I have big dreams. I have big ideas. I hope to do more, competition TV shows. I love doing competitions. I love, doing all these really amazing big things. I love traveling to expos and shows and teaching people and hands-on working with other cake decorators and inspiring them to to develop their skills and to see their eyes light up when they realize just how talented they are when they're working with the right materials, the right tools, and you can see them just fall in love with cakes. And to be someone in my position who is patient and I try to be patient and loving and give hands-on advice and just being able to be that person for other people, like the way that bakery store owner, Janelle, was for me when I dealt with so many awful coworkers who were mean to me, who thought I wasn't good enough, not fast enough, and who wouldn't let me decorate cakes. And she was the first person and the most talented person that I knew at the time who, instead of belittling me, instead of telling me I wasn't good enough, she took the time to sit with me and say, and instead of doing the task for me, instead of covering a cake in fondant for me, instead of painting it for me, she's like, this is how you do it. Now you try it. And I get to be that person for other people who doesn't tell them that they suck at what they're doing, that they can do it. They just need a little love, a little patience. And I love that. So hope to bring that to other people. I hope to entertain and all that other fun stuff. And if you are interested in learning more about my story and hearing other interviews with other people in this industry, then Haute Sugar Collective is for you. So be sure to like, subscribe, follow, whatever those buttons you need to smash are. We are on Apple, we're on Spotify, and we're on YouTube. And you can watch this in video format on YouTube as well as in podcast format, audio only. So be sure that you follow along. And if you're ever interested in being a guest on the podcast as well, please reach out on my website. I do have an application form on the Connect page. And so you can fill it out. And I would love to get other guests on this podcast so that we can talk about your stories and hopefully inspire other people and bring this community of cake and sugar artists together. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Emerlie Miller. Good luck and happy baking.